So this game has some pretty goobery voice acting, right?
You said your wife Mary was dead, right?
Like, yeah, Team Silent was very meticulous with their vocal direction and had Blaustein guide them through the language barrier, and every line coming from Maria/Mary is fucking gold, to the point where I'd even be willing to say that their ending monologue is by far and away the best bit of voice acting on the PS2. But then there's also Angela's bizarre-ass lines and really anything coming out of Eddie's mouth. Hell, even James will sometimes sound awkward in ways that feels unfitting. And I mean, just because they set out to do the acting a certain way doesn't mean that they necessarily always succeeded. A lot of it might be intentional, but some of it may also very well not be. Mistakes can happen is what I'm saying. But of course, there's that one documentary and the Twin Perfect vids, and now half of the fucking Silent Hill fanbase is parroting the same takes, taken opinions, and factoids as set in stone truths, blindly waving away any actual criticism one might have against the voice work, even though there's goofy-ass scenes like this one.
If anyone makes fun of me, I'll kill him! Just like that.
Eddie, have you gone nuts?
I knew it. You too. You're just like him, James.
Hey, I didn't mean anything.
Don't bother. I understand. You've been laughing at me all along, haven't you?
You've been laughing at me this whole time. Huh. I mean, when you first meet him, you were probably giggling at the random puke sounds. And the second time around, homie straight up's chomping down on a piz, so yeah, you probably have been, honestly. And James's rather ungenuinely delivered line feels like he knows.
Hey, I didn't mean anything.
It's not supposed to sound as if he's actually denying laughter, because he knows that you've been giggling because they wrote it to be that way, and holy shit, this game is on a goddamn level. You know, I think I'm gonna cut through some shit here. There's a lot of opinions, feature-length essays, analyses, think pieces, and critiques of even just the smallest segments of this game. But sometimes the praise gets so great that it's hard to see the forest through the trees. So this needs to be said actually, though. Silent Hill 2 is really fucking good. Like, high key, no cap, all caps, good. It's shit like what I opened this video with one at peak skeptical still getting blown on each repeated playthrough that makes it that. On the first time, it's all like, oh, so pretty, so scary, so calm, but then you also don't know what's going on and probably aren't too keen on the combat either, maybe even had a few unassuming giggles at the writing and acting here and there. That is, right up until you get to the ending with the big poetic twist that effortlessly causes all pieces to fall into place, thus assuring that it'll stick with you for life. The second playthrough will see you catching all pieces, falling along the way, knowing where they need to be. They say this because that, they react this way because this, that sort of thing. Essentially, truly seeing the scope of just how well constructed this game is thematically. Though you may have also fucked up and played the game on hard mode, getting stuck on fuck hitting things for days. Don't play Silent Hill 2 on hard mode, it's really bad. And then the third time will take place a fair bit later in life, giving you ample time to put on the hot take cap, the this was good then, but is it good now cap, the post-gaming Citizen Kane cap, which apparently is The Last of Us. Hey, first of all, fuck that. Like, what cinema's PT? What movie truly matches up to the scope of an open world? Has any film really been as convoluted as the Kingdom Hearts series? And which action flick could really match up to the intensity of playing a game like Mad World or the fast, free, and mobile vibes of a properly fast racer? The answer is no. Movies can provide what games provide, and in many ways vice versa as well. So gaming doesn't need a fucking Citizen Kane when it has a goddamn Silent Hill 2, bitch. It is, while wearing this 2012 Polygon article-ass cap of high-class level academic bitch snob rich white parents tier critical thinking, that you will most likely notice something as small as I noticed here with Eddie. A line that was taken for granted the first two times. A line that was just sitting there in the miasma of seemingly poorly delivered lines that is now revealed to be a very intentional, meticulously written piece of dialogue acted exactly in the off-kilter, highly Lynchian meta tone that it needed to be in for it to fall into place in this way. Or at least, you'd think that, but do you really know? I mean, it's followed up by this gamey-ass mess of a boss fight where you take turns point-blank gun-nutting each other in the face, which really isn't exactly in tune with the severity of the situation now, is it? Although, then, given the potentially meta comment following up this Zanius, I'm not so sure how comfortable I feel hard calling that point out and laughing at it any further.
Do you know what it does to you, James? When you're hated, picked on, spit on, just because of the way you look, after you've been laughed at your whole friggin' life.
Silent Hill 2 is one of those games that has worked itself into a corner where it's become almost immune to critique. I mean, it obviously isn't really. There's defo a few lines that could have not sounded as goofy and are likely just a product of the usual trappings of Japanese writers and directors making a game in English. And the gameplay, you know, has its moments, but the combat ain't exactly amazing, and the puzzles, depending on who you ask, are far too cryptic. But on a story front, it's hard to deny how even the smallest details all feel like they mean something. So I can definitely see why some folks have been led down a path of refuting any critique of this game with a quick factoid. Like, duh, of course the combat sucks. James isn't a fighter. Like, yeah, sure, nice one, fucko, but that doesn't really make it not what it is, nor does it mean that it can't still be a bad choice no matter how intentional. You can acknowledge yet still disagree with intent, even if executed successfully. And that's provided you even fully know what that intent is. Because, I mean, has any one of the Team Silent members even said that the combat is shitty on purpose? I know that's what people like to say, but I think if anything, it's simply that way because all survival horror games are. Even the ones where you play as highly fucking skilled Marines. Or perhaps it's just a simple way to make shit scarier. The weaker you are, the easier it is to fear shit after all, but that don't mean that it's immediately some sort of control-based character building. Especially because it doesn't really do anything with it either. It's not like James becomes more capable over time, even though in plot you do see him becoming more confident and determined, even jumping down bottomless pits without a care. Not to mention the other games where the supposedly schoolgirling Heather starts wielding semi-automatic rifles and a fucking katana. So I think saying why the combat's so shitty though isn't an unfair point of critique at all. Not that I mind personally, but if it's really some intentional bit of turbo meta, it would have been implemented better, probably. Anyway, I think the point of this video is going to be that Silent Hill 2 has largely been propped up by weaponized factoids and half-hearted assumptions of intent used as deflections or in place of critique. But that also, the game is still really fucking good, though. Or, you know, something like that at least. It's like 3 a.m., so look, man, I don't know. Mirror's Edge is a game made by DICEA in 2008. It's a very simple little parkour game that's almost sort of perfect in its simplicity. Not that it's flawless, oh no. But it set out to do one specific thing, aka speedrunning and first-person parkour with arcadey sensibilities and big replay value, and was about as good as a version of that as it could have been at the time on first try. Though people wanted more. And so, in 2016, they made a sequel called Mirror's Edge Catalyst. I kinda love it, not gonna lie, but it was largely disliked by fans of the original due to it not offering what it did. It's open world, you see, and has upgrade perks and shit, and so the arcadey, replayable, speedrunny nature had left the building. It doesn't have these elements, therefore game bad, says the reviewer. But the game never set out to be like that. It wasn't meant to be more of the same. It wasn't built to build upon it, but intended to add to it. Make it more largely appealing, stranger, says the Catalyst Defense Squad member, Gang. Now, the idea here is that the factoid of intent is supposed to refute the critique, and I personally don't feel as if it ever should. Sure, knowing more about a work and its creators can allow one to develop their opinions, but in the end, whether or not if the OG fan knows the creative intent behind Catalyst, it isn't gonna change the fact that it wasn't what they wanted. It's not an argument, I guess. It's just a fact. And facts ain't shit without feelings. They need human context, a reason to be presented. So just coughing one up in this case as if an argument on its own won't cut it. I'm not sure if I'm one of those death of the author type of people. Like, I am in terms of critique, because when I'm writing shit like this, I am the author. I don't want to sit there only quoting interviews and other videos. I'm here to express what I feel, what my interpretation of a given work is, how it gets my juices flowing, and not how it might get a hypothetical person's juices flowing based on the juices of those making it.
For juice!
But on the other hand, most of the works I tend to gravitate towards seem to be those made by what could for deft be called strong characters. I don't really watch movies anymore, to be fair, but I fuck with Carpenter despite him being a fan of Sonic Unleashed. I dig Tarantula even though he's kind of a sex pervert. I'm down with the Lynchness regardless of how he feels about my phone. And Kubrick is daddy because I can relate to them as creators. Carpenter directs, writes, and composes for all of his films, and I'd do all of that too should I ever have the opportunity to make a movie. I'd have my own visual vision and my own ideas of how shit would sound, and I don't think I'd be good enough with words to express them vocally, so I'd have to make shit myself. Though, on the other hand, each and every argument against the idea of an author in big media productions like films or games is one I inherently agree with. I don't fuck with ideas of leadership as is, and I wouldn't want to boss people around even if I was paying them. And at the end of the day, Carpenter may have done all of those things, but he wasn't the set designer, or any of the actors, or the scripter, or even the cinematographer. It's one of the reasons why my Metal Gear Solid retrospective dedicated so much time to all of the other faces involved, and why I actually put some effort into discerning what Kojima do. A thing I will be getting back into very soon. However, here be the tea. Despite Silent Hill having a very strong identity and sound and consistent tone and feel that would be around to varying degrees in even the non-Japanese ones, it didn't ever have a one-man guy type of face attached to it. Team Silent, it's in the name. It was always seen as a squad, with members leaving and joining throughout development of the first 4 games, with even the director behind the very first one leaving to siren it up soon after its release elsewhere. So it feels kinda weird to take loose quotes from the members of the dev team like the iconic shaking people's heart and propel them as gospel. His vision may have been to shake hearts, but for Ito, he may very well have just been looking to get horny on the main as he does on Twitter. Dude also may have cited The Prodigy as an inspiration, but despite the shit also sounding very late 90s Euro gloomy, I can't say Yamaoka's work really sounds like he was listening to that while composing what you're hearing right now. Not to mention that as the series got shopped around the world, it became quite evident that the man himself didn't really know all that much about what the other team members were going for either. Knowing how Konami works now too, who even knows how much communication there ever was between the different areas and teams? Maybe they all just were going with their own gut, working on what they felt was important. And so maybe the people writing Silent Hill 2 didn't fuck with the cult shit so many fans claim is the main propellant behind the series. And maybe 2 was just a stroke of creative luck given the circumstances. Would certainly imply why 3 and 4 feel a lot less focused. Look, again, I don't know. I wasn't there, and neither were you.
Thank you for saving me.
What I'm getting at, anyway, is that while the game certainly has this air of perfection about it, I'm not really so sure it's always as deliberate as many seem to think it is, despite the fact that it is, again, really fucking good. For example, that bit of Eddie dialogue near the end I brought up at the start is just something I happen to notice myself. I don't know if it was ever meant to sound that way or if it was even intended to be written like that. Like I said, it just neatly falls into place, allowing one to read it that way. Same way the fight right afterwards is by far the goofiest bit of combat the game has to offer, no doubt kicking up a chuckle, which is then followed by Eddie again going off about being laughed at his whole life. Shit's great, on perp or accidental, and above all, a pretty great example of why people end up eddying it up like I did. You see, Silent Hill 2 has tons of soft confirmed yet widely accepted thematic nidities that make it rather easy to read into everything like it's deep, pensively perpetuating the muddy faux factual immunity forever. The way all areas become increasingly dilapidated, water damaged and decaying, how there's themes of drowning and suffocating, falling into the depths everywhere, all relating to James having suffocated the fatally ill Mary to death and potentially killing himself by way of drowning depending on which ending you get, not being able to deal with the stress of his life being reduced to a passionless caretaker, but also more humanly just not wanting to be stuck, not getting the suck or fuck in his now literally lifeless marriage. And so all of the monsters are also these latexy, human, skinny, moisty looking, leggy, sexy nurse beast mannequin monsters. And I know I'm not exactly breaking new ground by pointing this out, but that ain't the point. The point I'm pointing out is that this isn't made clear throughout the game and is only revealed in the end, where all of it will fall into place, like, oh, so that, again, when you play it again or think about what you just experienced again, you'll come to realize that this is why it be this way, which, again, is why it's smart. Themes on their own are just that. It is in how they're dished out that makes them strong. Same with how Angela speaks almost like a child, lashing out in seemingly unreasonable ways, being shy and scared. Just all of the hallmarks of someone who could have been traumatized as a kid. But at first, this will probably just seem like her acting is a bit shitty. And, well, maybe there is a bit of that, ain't gonna lie, but by the time you're fighting a demon bed she calls daddy in a literally pulsating rape room, it's also like, oh, suddenly all of her freakouts, weird-ass lines, and man scares make sense. The moment James even so much as tries to reach out, she gets angst, because of course she would, seeing as her own fucking father betrayed the trusting role he should have had. But then there is also the actual literal writing of the dialogue. James be all,
I'm looking for someone.
and then she goes,
Who is it?
who is it? Like, that's something you say when someone knocks at the door or whatever. Surely just a who would have sounded more natural. And something like that, minor though it be, is probably more of a Japanese to English writing sort of thing than it is some type of deliberate weird maker. Though it isn't that it doesn't do that. Given that it immediately glazes the game in that Lynchian vibe where no one ever speaks normally, only stating declarations of symbolism, it, again, whether or not if it is intentional shouldn't really matter. It's great because of how it makes you feel, how consistent it is with the rest of the game's dreamy-ass super symbolic state, where hard artistic choices, genuine fuck-ups, and the general PS2-ness of it all work brilliantly in tandem to make a game that appears as if it has reached critical immunity. To the point where you could easily eddy up the camera, cock-blocking your every way as James pants and gasps for air in the blinding mist as the suffocation made real. Or, it's just shitty early 3D camera work and James panting because he run and they thought that would be a neat immersive addition. And I mean, hey, the camera does do a lot of deliberate shit, so who truly knows? Also, all of the corpses you find happen to be based off of James's character model, and is that a you're already dead or suicide meme, or just a result of them needing a model real quick hoping that nobody would notice? Oh, and what about the monsters flinging themselves onto the road from the bushes? Truly the deepest game. So again, it isn't actually immune to criticism, but even when you say something like, okay, I think it's a bit stupid that to get the elevator key you need to open this brazy ass box only to get a fucking hair out of it from which you can then dangle an unfuckled paperclip so you can fish it out of the shower hole. There will always be at least one motherfucker who's all like, actually, in issue 45 of Jotomate Iku PlayStation Magazine, Tetsuya Tanaka Takahashi of Konami's Backwhipping division said that the hair represents the fragility of Mary as she laid ill. And then you reply with, well, at least that knocking sound when you get locked up by Laura sounds shitty and No, the knocking represents the ill-beating heart of Mary before she died. It sounds distorted because of the pain. And even though all of this is a fat load of fucking bullshit and really stupid even if true, it is by far the most interesting thing about the game to me, aside from it being really fucking good. It makes people think and feel to the point where even its minor flaws can be made to sound like the most profoundest meta ever. And so I think we can all bond in this official ThorHighHeels quote. Because sometimes the most powerful thing a critic or fan can do is not knowing anything. Taking a work for what it is based on what it offers you directly rather than what could be discerned through research and discussion after the fact. Is that the moral of my story? Fuck man, I don't know, I'm going to bed.